I never thought I'd fire a gun into the ceiling of my own boardroom, the recoil jolting through my arm like a betrayal all its own. Shards of plaster raining down on the suits who thought they could bury me alive. The man I'd loved for a decade, my husband, my partner, the father of the child we lost, smiled that same crooked grin as he signed away my empire, not knowing I'd already planted the seeds of his ruin 6 feet under the fine print. And when the smoke cleared, literal and figurative, I realized revenge wasn't about winning. It was about making sure no one ever forgot the cost of crossing a woman who built everything from nothing. File 1. They say in America, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you're scrappy enough. But nobody tells you that those bootstraps are made of razor wire when you're a black woman from the south side of Chicago starting a tech company in Silicon Valley. I was 25 when I ditched my dead-end job at a call center, armed with nothing but a laptop, a killer app idea, and a fire in my gut that no amount of rejection emails could snuff out. Peyton Hale. That's me, named after the old football legend because my daddy swore I'd run through walls. And run I did. My app, Green Thread, was simple genius, a platform connecting small farmers directly to urban consumers, cutting out the corporate middlemen who squeezed every last drop from the supply chain. It was born from watching my grandma lose her farm to bank loans she couldn't pay, her tomatoes rotting in the field while supermarkets charged triple for imported crap. I coded the first version in a dingy apartment in Oakland, fueled by ramen and Red Bull, pitching to venture capitalists who looked at me like I was the diversity hire they had to tolerate. Urban agritech? From you, one VC sneered, his khakis starched whiter than his privilege. But I didn't fold. I iterated, networked at every Black Founders mixer from SF to LA, and bootstrapped until the beta launch hit 1 million downloads in week 1. That's when Derek walked into my life, or slithered, depending on how you look at it. He was the golden boy from Stanford, all Ivy polish and easy charm, interning at a rival firm that could have crushed me. We met at a rooftop mixer in the Mission District, the kind where tech bros sip overpriced IPAs and pretend they're changing the world. He cornered me by the railing, skyline glittering like fool's gold, and said, "Your app's got teeth. Most startups are all bark." I laughed, thinking he was just another dude fishing for an intro. But he kept showing up, coffee runs that turned into late-night strategy sessions, his laptop syncing with mine like our ideas were meant to merge. We were married a year later in a courthouse ceremony because neither of us could afford the Vegas elopement we joked about. Partners in crime, he called us, toasting with cheap champagne.
Crime.
Funny how that word echoes now. Green Thread exploded after that. Series of funding poured in, $5 million from a syndicate that included his old firm. I hired a skeleton crew, coders from Howard and Spelman, marketers who knew TikTok better than boardrooms. We moved to a loft in Soma, the kind with exposed brick and a view of the bay that made you feel invincible. Derek quit his job to join full-time as COO, handling ops while I stayed CEO. The visionary. Or so I thought. The first crack appeared 18 months in, during a routine audit. Our accountant, a nervous guy named Raj from Mumbai who'd immigrated on an H-1B, pulled me aside after hours. The office was empty, just the hum of servers in the corner, like a swarm of angry bees. Peyton.
There's
discrepancies, he stammered, pushing a spreadsheet across the desk. Numbers didn't lie. $200,000 siphoned into offshore accounts, routed through shell companies that traced back to Derek's name. My stomach dropped like I'd been sucker punched. Embezzlement, I whispered, the word tasting like battery acid. He swore it was a glitch. Some coding error in the payment gateway. Baby, you know me, he said that night, his eyes wide with that practiced innocence. We were in bed. The sheets tangled from what was supposed to be makeup sex, but felt more like interrogation. It's those VCs, they're testing us, trying to find dirt to lowball the next round. I wanted to believe him. God. I did. We just found out I was pregnant. A little miracle after months of trying. And the thought of our family fracturing terrified me. So I covered it. Falsified the books myself. Reallocated funds from a marketing slush account to plug the hole. It was a mistake. The kind that haunts you. But love makes fools of us all.
Or so I told myself.
The pregnancy didn't stick. Miscarriage at 12 weeks, silent. Sudden. Like the universe yanking the rug out. Derek was there in the hospital, holding my hand through the cramps that felt like my insides were being rewired. We'll try again, he murmured. But his eyes were distant, already scrolling emails on his phone. Grief hollowed me out, turned green thread into my lifeline. I poured everything into scaling. Partnerships with co-ops in the Delta. Features for carbon tracking that won us a spot in TechCrunch's Ones to Watch. Revenue hit $10 million annualized. Whispers of unicorn status floating like champagne bubbles. But Derek? He changed. Late nights at investor meetings that smelled like bourbon and perfume. Whispers from the team about him schmoozing with sharks from Apex Capital. The same VC firm that had passed on us early because, in their words, we don't fund social experiments. I confronted him once. In the kitchen of our loft. Rain lashing the windows like accusations. What's Apex offering you? I demanded. My voice steady, but my hand shaking. He laughed it off, pulling me close. Nothing.
Pay.
Just hedging bets. You and me against the world. Right? His kiss tasted like lies. But I swallowed them down. Too afraid of losing the only family I had left. The real gut punch came at the Series B pitch. We'd prepped for months, slides polished to a sheen, projections that promised 10x returns. The meeting was in a glass tower in Menlo Park, the kind where egos reflect off every surface. Derek presented first, my call.
To show unity.
He nailed it. Charisma on full blast. Closing with a line about disrupting the heart of America. One thread at a time. Applause rippled. Handshakes all around. Then the lead partner, a silver-haired prick named Harlan Voss, leaned back and said, "Impressive. But we want to talk equity split." Derek here mentioned. Adjustments. Adjustments. The word hung like smoke. Back at the office, I cornered him in the supply closet. Ironic. Huh? Doors rattling as I slammed them shut. What the hell did you tell them? He crumbled then, face paling under the fluorescent buzz. They wanted in
pay.
Big money. But they said you were the risk. They optics issue. Optics. Code for the black CEO who didn't play golf at Pebble Beach. So, I floated a co-CEO structure. You visionary. Me execution. 50-50. I laughed. A hollow bark that echoed off the reams of printer paper. Co-CEO? That's not partnership. Derek. That's dilution. He begged.
Swore it was temporary.
A bridge to the IPO. But I saw the email chain later. Hacked from his unsecured laptop while he showered. Voss promising Derek 30% equity outright if he eased the founder's role.
Eased.
Like I was a glitch to be patched out. That night, alone in the loft, I poured a glass of bourbon, Maker's Mark, the good stuff, and stared at the city lights mocking me. Betrayal isn't a thunderclap, it's a slow bleed. I'd covered for him once, taken the heat for his theft to protect our dream. Now he was selling me out for a seat at the white boys' table. The baby we'd lost? It felt like the first casualty in a war I hadn't signed up for. But wars have rules, and I knew them better than he ever would. I'd minored in law at community college before pivoting to code, devoured contracts like bedtime stories. Fine print was my superpower. By dawn, I drafted the counterstrike, a shareholder agreement amendment buried in the next funding docs. Clauses that'd trigger if control shifted without my sign-off. It was elegant, invisible, a Trojan horse in legalese. But as I hit save, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You think you can hide forever? Apex knows about the audit fix. One call, and you're done. My blood iced. Derek?
No.
This was bigger. Voss. Playing puppet master. I didn't sleep. Instead, I started digging, late into the night, fingers flying over keys like accusations. Turns out, Derek's glitch wasn't isolated. Trails led back years to his Stanford days. A fraternity hazing scandal where he'd covered up assault, paying off the victim with daddy's money. And me, I'd married into that rot without knowing. The secret he'd buried? It wasn't just cash. It was blood money from a lawsuit settlement he'd funneled into our seed round. I'd borne the weight unknowingly. My app built on tainted ground. Rage settled in my chest like a stone, cold and unyielding. Revenge wasn't destruction. It was reclamation. I'd take back what was mine.
Law by law.
Lie by lie. But first, I had to play the long game. Smile at board meetings.
Kiss him goodnight.
All while wiring the explosives. America loves an underdog story, but they hate when the underdog bites back. Watch me. The weeks blurred into a tense tango. Derek strutted like he'd won the lottery, name-dropping Voss at every dinner, oblivious to the frost in my eyes. Our team sensed the shift, awkward silences in stand-ups, side eyes when he barked orders. Raj quit, citing family reasons, but he slipped me a USB drive on his way out, more ledgers, timestamps linking Derek to Apex's slush funds. Be careful. Peyton, he whispered, glancing over his shoulder. Careful? In this town, careful gets you sidelined. I hired a PI on the down low, a no-nonsense ex-cop named Lena from Detroit who'd traded badges for bugs. She tailed Derek to a dive bar in the Tenderloin, where he met Voss in a back booth, envelopes changing hands under the table. Photos hit my inbox, Derek pocketing cash, Voss's hand on his shoulder like a benediction. He's flipping, Lena's email read. Talking buyout, full acquisition. You out. My heart hammered. Not from hurt, but fury. The man who'd vowed till death do us part was authoring my obituary. Halloween night. We hosted the annual team party in the loft, jack-o'-lanterns flickering on the fire escape, EDM thumping from hidden speakers. I played the gracious host, circulating with a tray of spiked cider, laughing at inside jokes. Derek was in his element, costumed as Tony Stark, iron suit clinking as he clinked glasses. To green thread, he toasted, arms slung around me like a prop. And to the family making it happen. The room cheered, but I tasted bile. Family. What a joke. Later, as the crowd thinned I pulled him into the bedroom for a surprise. The door clicked shut, and I shoved the photos in his face, grainy prints from Lena, timestamps glaring. Explain this. His face drained of color. Iron Man mask slipping. Pay. It's not. I cut him off. Voice low and lethal. Don't. I know about Stanford.
2.
The girl you paid off. Our seed money? Her silence. He staggered back, collapsing onto the bed.
It was a mistake.
Hazing got out of hand. I protected us. Protected. The word ignited something primal. I grabbed the nearest thing, a crystal decanter from our wedding, and hurled it at the mirror. Shards exploded, reflecting 1,000 fractured versions of us. You protected your ass. I covered your theft. Derek. Falsified reports while carrying our child. And for what? So you could sell me to Voss. He lunged, grabbing my wrists, his breath hot and whiskey sour. You're hysterical. Calm down. Hysterical. The oldest dismissal in the book. I twisted free, knee connecting with his gut. He wheezed, doubling over. Get out, I hissed. But not before you sign this. I thrust the divorce papers at him, prepped by my shark of a lawyer. Clauses freezing his assets pending investigation. He scanned them, eyes widening at the forensic accounting writer. You bitch, he spat. But there was fear under the venom. Sign. Or Apex sees the photos. And the ledgers. And your little hazing secret goes viral. He signed, hand trembling, the pen scratching like claws on wood. As he slunk out, costume trailing, I sank to the floor amid the glass.
Sobs racking me.
Not for him, for the girl I'd been. The empire we'd built on sand. But dawn brought clarity. This wasn't the end, it was intermission. Voss was the real snake, coiling for the kill. And I'd become the mongoose. November hit San Francisco like a hangover, gray skies dumping rain that turned the streets into rivers of regret. Greenthread's office buzzed with forced normalcy, sprints on the new AI forecasting tool. Holiday party planning emails pinging like grenades. I kept up appearances, yoga in the mornings to steady my pulse. Therapy sessions where I unpacked the grief like old luggage. Betrayal is a death, my counselor,
Dr.
Reyes, said over Zoom, her voice steady as a metronome. You mourn, then you rebuild. Rebuild.
Yeah.
But first, dismantle. Derek crashed at a buddy's in the Castro, texting apologies that I archived unread. Divorce proceedings crawled forward. His lawyer, a smarmy Yale grad, filing motions to contest the prenup. Community property, the email read. Half the company. Half. As if he'd coded a single line. I fired back through counsel, discovery phase incoming. All financials laid bare. Let him sweat.
Meanwhile,
Voss ramped up the pressure. Apex's offer letter landed via courier. $50 million buyout. Generous transition for current leadership. Leadership. Singular.
Me.
Out with a golden parachute barely big enough for a nap. I shredded it in the shredder. There were a tiny symphony of spite. But the real play was subtler. Whispers leaked to the press. Insider sources say Greenthread's CEO faces embezzlement probe. TechCrunch ran a blind item. Anonymous tips pointing fingers my way, the woman who'd cooked the books to hide personal indiscretions. Indiscretions. Code for the audit fix I'd done for Derek. My phone blew up. Panicked calls from investors. HR alerts about stock dips. The board, hand-picked loyalists, mostly women of color I'd mentored, convened an emergency Zoom. Peyton, we need transparency, said Elena, our lead engineer. Her face pixelated but stern. Is it true? I stared into the camera, channeling every ounce of steel I'd forged in rejection lines. It's a smear. Derek's doing, with Apex pulling strings. But I've got proof. Trust me, one more week. They did. Barely. But trust is fragile as fog in the bay. That week, I went full scorched earth. Lena's bugs caught gold, recordings of Voss and Derek in a Sausalito safe house, plotting the coup. The wife's out, Voss drawled, cigars smoke curling. We install you as interim, then absorb. SEC won't touch us if we spin it as ethical realignment. Derek hesitated, God. A flicker of conscience, then nodded. She'll fight dirty. Voss chuckled. Let her. We've got the dirt.
Dirt.
Plural. I cross-reference Raj's USB with public records. Apex's portfolio riddled with greenwashing scandals. Subsidies funneled to factory farms while preaching sustainability. Voss himself? A trail of sexual harassment suits settled out of court. NDAs thicker than his wallet. And the kicker, ties to that Stanford hazing. Frat donations from Apex's PAC. Hush money looped back. Derek hadn't just betrayed me. He'd pawned our soul to the devil. Armed, I struck. First, a whistleblower filing to the SEC, anonymous, routed through a Cayman proxy, detailing the embezzlement, with Derek's name front and center. Leaks hit Wired before dawn. Greenthread COO implicated in fraud. Stock wobbled. But not crashed. My faithful board issued a statement. CEO Hale leads with integrity. Investigation ongoing. Derek called. Voice cracking. Hey. What did you do? I let it ring. Savoring the silence. Next. The media blitz.
Isetfa interviews.
No makeup. Hair in a fierce afro puff, raw. Unapologetic. NPR's code switch. As a black founder, I've faced gatekeepers my whole career. It's not just personal, it's systemic. The Atlantic picked it up. The revenge of the ousted CEO. Controversy brewed. Peyton Strong trended on X. But so did Greenthread Gate. Trolls calling me a race-baiting harpy.
Good.
Stir the pot. Let it boil. Voss countered viciously. A dox dropped my address. Paparazzi swarming the loft like vultures. I moved to a Airbnb in No Valley. Fortified with ring cams and a Glock I'd bought on impulse. California wait period be damned. Fear makes you bold. Derek showed up at midnight. Rain-soaked and desperate. Pounding the door. Let me in.
Pay.
They're turning on me. I watched through the peephole. His face a mask of ruin. You made your bed, I said through the wood. Now piss in it. He slid down, sobbing apologies. Part of me, the old me, ached to unlock. But the new Peyton? She chambered around and aimed at the shadows. The climax brewed at the holiday gala. Tech Alliance's black tie bash at the Palace of Fine Arts. Invites were power moves. I went to reclaim mine. Slipped into a crimson gown, blood red. No apologies, flanked by Lena and a security detail. The hall glittered, chandeliers dripping light. Execs in tuxes air-kissing like mobsters. Voss held court by the bar. Derek his reluctant shadow. Eyes darting like a cornered rat. I approached. Flute of champagne in hand. Smile sharp as a stiletto. Harlan. Derek. Fancy seeing you here. Voss recovered first, toasting lazily. Peyton. Heard about your troubles. Tough break. Derek mumbled something, avoiding my gaze. The air crackled, bystanders sensing blood. Troubles? I echoed, voice honeyed venom. You mean the part where my husband sold our company for a pat on the head? Or the hazing cover-up that funded our start? Gasps rippled. Voss's face tightened. Cigar paused mid-puff. Careful.
Girl.
Libel suits cut deep. Girl. The slur landed like a slap. I leaned in, breath mingling with his smoke. Not libel if it's true. And I've got tapes. Harlan. Every slimy word. Derek bolted then, weaving through the crowd like a ghost. Voss laughed, but it was brittle. Bluff. I pulled my phone, hit play, his voice, tinny but damning, plotting my ouster. Chaos erupted, phones out, flashes popping, security converging. Voss lunged for the device. I sidestepped, spilling champagne down his lapel. Oops, I purred. Stain sticks. He snarled. You'll regret this, but his eyes betrayed panic. As guards escorted him out, I turned to the crowd, heart thundering. Green thread isn't for sale. Not to thieves. Not to liars. Who's with me? Cheers exploded, tentative at first, then roaring. Women in the room nodded, fists raised, even some bros joined, shamed into solidarity. But as I exited into the fog-shrouded lagoon, doubt crept in. Was this justice or just vengeance? Derek's text flooded. Please. Stop. I love you.
Love.
The word mocked me. I deleted them, but the ache lingered. Back home, the Glock on my nightstand gleamed like a promise. Sleep evaded. Instead, I pored over final docs. The SEC probe escalated, Apex's skeletons tumbling out. Voss facing subpoenas. Derek? Named co-conspirator. Assets frozen. My lawyer called at 3 a.m. It's over. Board's voting you full control tomorrow. Congrats, CEO. Victory tasted like ash. I'd won the company, but lost the man. And the child, that ghost haunted every quiet moment. Twist came via certified mail, a letter from Voss's attorney, offering a truce. Drop the filings, and they'd expose Derek's full role in the hazing, not just cover-up, but participation. Protect your ex, it read. Or ruin him utterly. Dilemma gnawed. Mercy for the monster who'd birthed my ruin? Or total war? Dragging innocence into the fray? America loves winners, but hates the collateral. I stared at the ceiling, rain drumming like judgment. Decisions like this? They split souls. December dawned brittle. Christmas lights mocking the chill in my bones. The board vote was unanimous, me. Unassailable. Green threads held mine alone. Press hailed it a triumph. From betrayal to boss, Peyton's power play. Forbes wanted a profile. I demurred. Too raw for spotlights. Instead, I dove into ops. Promotions for Elena and the crew. A new equity pool ensuring no one else got diluted. The app surged, downloads spiking 40% on the scandal's tailwind, irony's bitter gift. Derek vanished into radio silence, then re-emerged in a halfway house upstate, plea deal pending for the fraud. His lawyer begged to sit down. Closure, she called it. I agreed. Neutral ground, a taqueria in the Mission. Murals of Aztec warriors watching like sentinels. He looked hollowed, unshaven. Eyes sunken. The Stamford shine dulled to tarnish. "Hey," he started, voice cracking over tacos al pastor. "I fucked up. Beyond repair."
But
The hazing. "It wasn't what you think." I forked a bite of carne asada, chewing slow. "Enlighten me." He spilled then. Haltingly, not assault, but a drunken prank gone wrong, a pledge stripped, hazed with ice water. Hypothermia landing him in ER. Derek paid the med bills. Silenced the kid with cash from his trust fund. "I was protecting the house," he said. "My future. Future. Built on someone else's suffering. And me." I pressed. "You let me shoulder your theft, knowing it'd tank us if it blew." He nodded, tears salting the salsa. I panicked. Voss dangled the deal, said he'd bury it all if I delivered the company. Thought I was saving us.
us.
The delusion died hard. I slid a napkin across. "Tissues or surrender. Take your pick." "You saved yourself, Derek. Now live with it." As I left, his whisper followed. "Forgive me? I didn't turn." Forgiveness is a luxury. Survival's the tax. Voss's truce loomed larger. His suit proposed a settlement, $20 million payout to Green Thread for consulting, in exchange for quashing the SEC noise. My team split, Elena for it. Clean slate. Focus on growth.
Raj.
Back as advisor. Against. He slithers free. Praise again.
Me?
The scales tipped controversial. Expose him fully. And the hazing victim's name surfaced. A kid named Marco. Now a teacher in Fresno. Family depending on his stability. Ruin Voss. Ruin Marco's peace. Or take the money. Let the devil skate. I chose the gray. Met Voss in his penthouse airy, Fisherman's Wharf views. Ego on tapestries. He poured scotch. Smug as sin. "Smart girl. Sign here." I did. But not before amending. A clause mandating Apex divest from agritech polluters. $5 million to farmer relief funds, my grandma's legacy. Weaponized. Blood money repurposed, I said. Pen scratching finality. His smile faltered. "You're no victim." "Never was," I replied. "Just the reckoning." The twist hit like a sucker punch. 2 days before New Year's. Lena called. Voice tight. "Check the Dropbox."
Now.
Files unloaded. Emails from Derek to Voss. Dated pre-marriage. He'd pitched Green Thread's concept first, to Apex. As his solo venture. My code. My vision. Stolen in beta drafts he'd borrowed during our early dates. Voss passed then.
But the seed?
Planted by betrayal's root. Rage roared back. But muted, exhaustion's gift. Derek hadn't just embezzled cash, he'd hijacked my soul's work. I confronted him via video from county lockup, his face pixelated in orange. "You thief," I said flatly. From the start, he broke. Confessions tumbling. I loved the idea. Loved you. But Apex. They saw potential in me. Not us. Potential. White adjacencies perk. "And the baby?" I whispered. He sobbed. "I wanted out before." Complications. Complications. My loss. Reduced to inconvenience. I ended the call. Then did the unthinkable. Visited Marco. Tracked him to a modest ranch in the valley. Kids' bikes on the lawn. Coffee on his porch. I laid it bare, not blame, but choice. Expose Voss. Your story goes public. Or we settle quiet. You get a scholarship fund in your name. He chose quiet. Eyes weary. I've rebuilt. Don't drag me back.
Fair.
No heroes here, just survivors picking shrapnel from wounds. New Year's Eve. I stood on the Golden Gate. Wind whipping like vindication. Fireworks bloomed over the bay. Bursts of defiant color. Green thread thrived. Acquisitions in the wind. Me at the wheel. Derek? 5 years probation. Disbarred from tech. Voss? Faded to advisory shadows. Empire clipped. Victory? Sure. But the mirror showed scars. Trust eviscerated. A womb's echo empty. Was I right? Pulling that trigger, metaphoric. In boardrooms and backrooms, splintered sides. Feminists crown me avenger. Cynics called it corporate cannibalism. Black Twitter debated, systemic win or personal vendetta. No absolutes. Just the messy American grind. Build. Break. Rebuild. I fired no real bullets. But the ceiling I'd shot? It was glass. And the shards cut deep. As midnight told, I whispered to the void, to the girl who ran through walls, you made it. But freedom's weight? Heavier than chains. And, in that tension, the real story lingers, revenge reclaims, but never restores. What's a throne without its ghosts?